Howdy motherfuckers, I hope you've had a fantastic day. Welcome back to MCubed. I am your host Harris, and we are going to get right into episode 3 of Sandman with another MCubed-Grade. An MCubed-Grade is where we go over 10 specific tenets and give it either a half point or a full point, and by the end, we figure out what grade it gets. Our 10 tenets are production design, score and soundtrack, sound itself, editing, effects, cinematography, casting, acting, writing, and finally, direction. So, Sandman episode 3, let's get right into it. What about the production design? I gave it a 0.5 on the first episode, a full 1 on the second episode, and you know what, I'm sticking with a 1 on the third episode because this scope is, I think, fully realized now, and I'm really enjoying it. It is expanding into mostly London and smaller venues, but we're seeing intricate venues no matter where we are, and that's what I like to see in something. I like to see that each little set piece has been thought out. Whatever the visual effects artists are doing has been thought out, and it always is, but well thought out and something that's going to add to the world. I love world building and I'm seeing a lot of it, and that is making me very happy. So we're going to start it out with the full 1 of 1. And that brings us to the score and soundtrack. I believe on both episode 1 and 2, I've given the score and soundtrack a half a point and not a full point. And it changes here because I think I'm going to give it a full point with it. It really expands, I guess, upon the story, and that's what you want your music to do. I feel like the people doing the score and making the soundtrack have leveled the playing field in that matter. They've escalated it where I feel like everything they've added and are adding is starting to do a decent amount of work alongside the acting. This is when it gets that full 1 out of 1. So on our second tenet, we're doing excellent. Perfect score so far, 2 out of 2. And that brings us to the actual sound itself. So they're keeping completely consistent with sound at the moment. I think the reason score and soundtrack is so much better in this particular episode, not better per se, but has upped their ante and reaches that full 1 is because there's maybe not as much to do with sound. There wasn't as much just movement. All the set pieces and everything that has happened in this episode were fairly contained while still exploring a much larger world, which was enjoyable. I liked the way they did everything, but I don't think it relied as much as on sound this episode as it did the score and soundtrack, and I'm glad they found that balance. So I'm still going to give it a full 1 out of 1. Now after sound, that brings us to editing. The editing in this episode was very, very, very well done as well. I think generally it was very well sequenced. I particularly really liked the editing behind the dream sequence when Johanna Constantine is going to her ex-girlfriend's apartment or girlfriend's apartment, whatever it may be, and she has that dream sequence, then realizes, wait, this isn't real, and she's dying in the bed in the back room back here. It feels so surreal, but it also feels dreamlike. You know something's not entirely right, mostly because, you know, after 6 months gone and okay, you want to make it up to me real quick, like, okay. We knew that wasn't real, and I think the editor did a really good job of putting that feel there and helping the audience know that, wait, something isn't entirely right. I will give the editing 1 out of 1 as well. Now we're getting into effects, both visual and practical. Once again, I don't have any complaints at all. The dream sequence was intriguing just from the way it looked, and you knew it wasn't completely right. Something was off in the right way. I liked it. I might have just taken a toke of a nice dab or a joint prior to it, but it was ethereal nonetheless. The effects in this episode definitely deserve a 1 out of 1, and that brings us to 5 out of 5 so far. That's a perfect score, and we're halfway through this thing. Sixth, we are talking about cinematography. It, once again, doesn't have the largest scope in the world, but is expanding its, I believe, continent. If it's not continental, it's multi-dimensional, quite literally. I think even though it isn't the largest scale and scope for the episode, set piece-wise, we're still traversing the world and we're seeing these little bits of world, and it doesn't feel like the set pieces are as small as they are because of the cinematography, and I think that's excellently done and also deserves a full 1 out of 1. And our 7th tenet after cinematography is casting. I don't think there are all that many new casting choices in this episode, maybe a line or 2 from the guards. We get the full performance out of the Ethel Cripps character, and we also get David Thewlis's John Burgess character on the path to full realization for it. And I love the casting on both of those choices. They definitely get to show their acting chops in just a small setting once again, in that 4-walled white room that John Burgess has been stuck in for so long. I really like the casting at that moment because those two play off each other so well. Sandman's doing fantastic as well. The little bit of Corinthian we get, fantastic as well. Boyd Holbrook and Tom Sturridge are both fantastic. I think we're gonna give this one a 1 out of 1 as well. Now on our 8th tenet, which happens to be acting, we just went over David Thewlis Thulis and the actress that plays Ethel Cripps. They're fantastic off of each other. I'm really excited to watch David Thulis go alongside Boyd Holbrook with where this goes, because of course we get a little fix your suit and tie on the way out of the hospital, the mental hospital that you probably put a bunch of people in there because of that damn ruby that you're looking for now. I'm intrigued where that's going, but I think the acting bolsters my intrigue there, and excellently done so far, everybody on all accords. I think the main cast of this series seems to be very small, and all of the small but larger than life roles within this story that don't last long so far have been fantastic, and that's just one of my favorite things about it so far. We're gonna give it a full 1 out of 1 for this tenet and an 8 out of 8 overall at the moment. So writing wise, I know Neil Gaiman has helped with this, and you can just feel Neil Gaiman's touch. I really need to read these comics. I really like where the writing is going so far. It is delivered simply and elegantly while retaining depth, much depth, behind almost each and every sentence spoken in the entire series, because so far there's not been a whole bunch of dialogue. It's not necessarily a dialogue heavy. It's not expository. We're not just getting exposition dumps every 30 seconds. We're getting little pieces of exposition while we're watching what's happening. I really enjoy the process of how the writing has happened so far. So that's our 9th tenet, and I'm gonna give that a full 1 out of 1. Going into our 10th and final tenet of direction, which is also fantastic. I don't think the writing, the acting, even the cinematography, any of these different things, these little story bits and things that help bolster the story, none of it would be there without the direction and the writing. Everything starts in the writer's room, but I don't know who directed this episode. I need to start paying a lot more attention and watching the credits. Netflix is always trying to get me to watch the next one. It really excites me for what's coming next. I just watched 2 episodes in a day, and you know, that's nothing, but I enjoy making these little videos after each episode, which makes watching each episode that much more pertinent up here in my own mind. And I have a whole staircase full of books right around the corner over here, so I'm going to be adding some Sandman books before the next season, but I'm definitely excited for what we have going forward with this series. I think direction gets a full 1 out of 1 for this episode, which brings us to our very first perfect score, not only for the Sandman series, but for MCubed grades in general. Thank you, Netflix, for letting my job be so easy here. I really am enjoying this series so far. I really am looking forward to what's coming next. Now, if you would like to support our channel, it would be really great if you told me your favorite parts about this episode down in the comments. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe for us, and hit that notification bell, and I hope to see you in the next MCubed grade. Get a Woodger down there in the links, and have a fantastic day.